My name is Joey Temali. I'm sponsored by OTB Discs, and you are listening to the Chain Clankers podcast.
You're listening to the Chain Clankers podcast with your hosts, Quentin Ferris and Horatio Gonzalez. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks again for tuning in. It's Horatio, non-radio voice here for you guys with another great episode. Just kidding, you got
me rolling over here. You got me rolling over here. That's funny.
We got another great episode, a lot of fun. This might be a little bit information overload, but I think it's good. We really just kicked back and just let this man just learn to us for a good hour.
Learn to us. I like that.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. But Q, tell us what we talked about today.
Yeah, for sure, man. This was such a fun episode. Joey Temali coming on, man. If you don't know who this guy is, you're gonna know who this guy is by the end of the episode. Let me tell you what, folks. If you've ever wondered how the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the DGN works, this is the episode for you, because he really goes behind the scenes and how the Disc Golf Pro Tour works, how the DGN is able to put stuff up live, and just the operations behind these monstrous organizations. We have a great discussion about the PDGA and maybe how they're helping or hurting disc golf right now. We get on a little bit of a rant about the U.S. women's major and just the failure it was by the PDGA. And Horatio asks a fantastic question in this episode. Where does your money go when you sign up to be a PDGA member? I think that's something we deserve to know, and we get most of the answers in this episode, I'll say. I had a much better understanding of where my money goes after this episode, so definitely you're going to want to stay tuned for that. And we talk about the Paul Macbeth Foundation. Joey was able to go down to the trip to Mexico, and he shares some firsthand stories from that trip that you're not going to get on any other podcast. If you're having a blast, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment of what you're thinking about this episode, and do you have a PDGA membership? I'd love to know. And as well, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, we appreciate any ratings and reviews, even if they're constructive criticism. We're all about that. We're all about getting better. And without further ado, let's go ahead and let's bring Joey on. Joey, welcome on to the podcast, man. Super excited to have you with us. This, so far, in just a little bit of talking we were doing before the episode, one of the brightest minds in the game right now. I think there's a lot to be learned today from this episode. How are we doing today, man?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're doing good. Yeah. I mean, we're not in California, like you are, but we're living it. How is it out there?
I think your wallets are thanking you that you're in Kansas and not in California, because she's not very happy with me right now.
Yeah.
That much.
Yeah, it's only getting more expensive out there.
Yeah, I know. But it's worth it, in my opinion. It's expensive, but if you know how to do it right, California is are you kidding me, beautiful. It's I'm aside from spending a week down in Mexico, I came in through Lake Tahoe down into Stockton. That drive from Tahoe to Stockton was one of the craziest, most amazing 4-hour drives I've ever done. It's you go from mountain lakes, up over the mountains into the rivers, and then you drop down, and every 1,000 feet you drop down out of the mountains, you're in a whole new just landscape. You got the wine countries, and then if you because if you drive I like to drive, where you get off the highway and take the little back roads, if you have time, that's the best way to do California, which is my plan for the next 3 days, to take the back road, US Highway, California Highway 1, just go all the way up to Oregon. So it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's definitely beautiful out there. So what were you out there, you were going to play initially?
Yeah, so I played OTB Open 2 weeks ago, and then obviously I was in Mexico last week, and then I was going to play Masters Cup. It just the field was full by the time it opened up for my tier registration. And then I was going to film it for the Pro Tour for the Disc Golf Network, and then it became pretty apparent a couple weeks ago. They sent a couple guys down. I don't know how far down the tech rabbit hole you want to go, but basically you've got your camera, And then you've got this little cable that connects to, it's called a live view unit. And that's like what shoots the footage out to our switcher, our technical director in Milwaukee. I've worked for the Disc Golf Network since I was 18. So I basically know like most of that tech. And it basically became very obvious that the cell signal was so bad at De La that they would have needed to buy a bunch of the upgraded units like for the event, and each unit costs anywhere between like $10,000 and $18,000 per unit. It's like, and then on top of it, it's like, so you have like, I don't know how most people's phone plans work, but you get like what, if you're not getting unlimited, you get like 5 gigs a month. These units on their own churn out like 250 gigabytes of data an hour. They're just super expensive to operate. And so the Pro Tour basically made the decision that like it's already expensive enough. The existing units that we have, we need to like buy this step up. And so it just didn't make sense to film Masters Cup, basically what they told me. So yeah, I mean, my whole week kind of opened up, which is nice, I suppose. So I'm just going to explore the whole California coastline and work my way up to Portland by Saturday night. And then I'm picking up Eagle at the airport on Sunday, and we're going to go out to the coast and hang out and then start getting ready for that tournament. So slightly surprising off week, but honestly could not have asked for a prettier place to have one.
Yeah, for sure. That's really crazy. And I'm more than fine, Horatio, correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm more than fine getting super technical in this episode and just being able to learn those behind the scenes of what's going on. So please be as technical as you want to. A quick question I do have on that before we kind of change subjects. Is that kind of like the same reason the notable tournament that's coming to my head from last year would have been the one up in, I literally had the name and I just lost it, up there in Massachusetts. Golly.
Not Maple Hill?
Yo, Maple Hill. Yes. Thank you. Wow. I literally had that in my head until I was getting ready to say it. Thank you. Maple Hill. I remember there being like multiple points throughout the broadcast where it would just kind of like freeze and then stop. Is that just because the connection there is so bad that, you have to get the upgraded units?
Yeah. Okay. So basically you've got like there's like tons of different companies that you can use to buy these units, right? So the one that the Pro Tour uses is called LiveView. You can use, I know Smashbox used to use like back in the old days of Smashbox being like an independent company. They used VMix, or it was some other little thing. But so the Pro Tour uses the LiveView. You have like the LiveView 300s, which basically look like these little kind of like satchels. And then the LiveView 600s are just like which is like a big backpack, and they're just these huge boxes. And you have like an SDI cable, which is like the little one that you like push in and screw on the camera, and then that plugs in. So all the data from your camera goes into this LiveView. And then basically how it works is it's like how your cell phone has like a SIM card for a certain carrier that you would plug in, right? So like this is Verizon for me. So I would plug in a Verizon SIM card, and then I connect to all the Verizon towers. Basically, each LiveView unit has 2 USB ports, and you can plug any modem into the USB ports on the LiveView unit. So what we'll do actually is we'll go to courses like a week in advance and figure out which carrier, which provider has the best signal in certain spots. So for example, like I did the live test at Portland Open a couple years ago at Blue Lake, and Verizon signal was really bad, but AT&T and Sprint, because that's back when Sprint was a thing in 2019, those were like the best 2. So you take every LiveView unit, and we basically just have a big Ziploc bag full of these modems, and they just look like flash drives, and you just plug them in. And so Maple Hill, I haven't been out there, but my guess is that A, the cell signal's not great, and then B, there's probably a spot on the course where it's like super bad and there's just like nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And that's a hard issue to work around, because I mean the only solution is put a cell tower nearby, and that's not really a financially viable thing for the Disc Golf Pro Tour. But I know that's like why we were able to do Worlds a couple years ago, because we didn't have the AT&T modems. And then when I went to do a test in 2019, we tested the AT&T little flash drives, and it worked for Northwood Golds. And we were like, wow, okay, we can actually do live here. We didn't think we could. And Delaw's really bad. Verizon's like the only thing that works out there. And like Top of the World, if you know that whole, like the big, dropping shot, that's like the best signal on the whole course. And then like, if you're in other spots, there's just not like another option. Like some courses you'll have like a good cell tower on one end, and then when you get to the back end, like at Vista, sometimes you'll have like a good Verizon tower over by the front. And then when you get to those back holes, that signal's a little weaker, but boom, there's like a huge AT&T tower. So you do one Verizon, one AT&T, and so then you have like that smooth transition. But some courses it's just really hard. And I mean, I know the Disc Golf Network has kind of steered away from Masters Cup for the last couple of years for that reason alone. But basically what they found out was that the backpack units, the 600s, those would be fine at De La, but they only have 2 of those. And then the older ones are like the 300s, the little like satchels. Those would need a booster. And so basically somebody would have to carry this huge box and have cables coming out of the box into all those units and like be tethered to all the units to like boost the signal. And with all the trees there, like if it was at Country Club, it maybe would work, but it just seems like such a logistical nightmare. They didn't want to do that. So that's kind of like how they assess whether or not it's feasible to do a broadcast for the Disc Golf Network.
Do you think that with Disc Golf, Disc Golf Network getting bigger and Disc Golf growing and wanting to grow the sport more, do you think that they will start to pick where certain tournaments are done based off of the coverage availability?
100%, dude. I mean, I don't know what the rumors are or like what the kind of the truth is to the national tour becoming the pro tour, or I mean, there's a lot of people. I've heard a lot of things from a lot of different people about that. But I mean, let's say that the pro tour absorbs all the national tours. I could see events like De La and events like Milo at Beaver State Frilling. I could see both of those getting the short end of the stick because of the lack of ability to do live coverage. Because the Disc Golf Network the pro tour makes, I would say at least half of their income comes from the Disc Golf Network subscriptions. That would be my guess. Because when I worked for the pro tour, like 2 years ago, we weren't profitable. Like we were not even breaking even at events. Like we were losing money. That was like back in the day, before the Disc Golf Network was a subscription. Like it was just free on YouTube, right? Like how are you going to make money at all, right? I mean, so the Disc Golf Network being like $8.99 a month or whatever it is, like that is the reason that the pro tour is a sustainable organization. So yes, I 100% think that as they continue to grow and evolve, that's going to be like at the top of the list, if not the top of the list, when they're determining whether or not they can do new events on tour.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's super, super interesting. And if you could just real quick, we haven't had this discussion much on our podcast. What is the difference between the National Tour and the Disc Golf Pro Tour?
So the National Tour is the elite series run by the PDGA. So that's like the Pro Tour has absolutely nothing to do with the National Tour, except for this year. They are like the Disc Golf Network, which isn't like, it's technically like under the Pro Tour, right? But it can kind of function as its own media like company. So I don't know if they were hired or partnered with the PDGA to just film those events. And like, I think it's a symbiotic relationship because it also grows the Disc Golf Network by filming national tour events, like especially DDO, like Dynamic Disc Open. That's like the best national tour. I would say like 5 years ago, the national tour was like the gold standard, right? Like those were the high quality, like best of the best events. And the pro tour was still kind of like this little, tour in its infancy. And I think obviously due to the pandemic and just due to in my opinion, the change in administration that happened 2 years ago, the Disc Golf Pro Tour has taken over that number one spot, and it's just their standards that they hold every course and every event to a very, very high standard. And their staff is fantastic. They're profitable. And so yeah, the national tour is run by the PDGA. They're still great events, but it doesn't quite have as much coverage as it used to, and I don't think it quite holds the same, I don't know, like elite level as it used to. And that's kind of it. The biggest thing for me that I noticed at Pro Tours is like at Pro Tours, you got all the trailers set up, all the assets are everywhere, like the Pro Tour banners are everywhere, and then the staff. They have like 15 on the ground staff that you see at every event. You got like your course manager, you got all the camera guys, like all the dudes that you notice. Jeff Springs there, Seth Fenley, like all the guys. And at the PGA, at like national tours, there's like, I think the responsibility of running the event is left up more to like the club and the TD than like the PDGA takes a much smaller role in running the event than the Disc Golf Pro Tour does at their events. The Disc Golf Pro Tour like is the TD and every, like, they work like with the staff and the TD of the event, but like it's like 50-50, if not like more on the side of the Pro Tour than on the side of like the local volunteers in the event. But yeah, that's kind of the biggest difference. And obviously there's only five or six national tours, and 11 Pro Tours plus 5 or 6 Silver Series events. So the Pro Tour is growing a lot. It used to be about the same, but now it's drastically different.
Could you see some kind of like also administrative kind of change come also to the PDGA, who's in charge of like the national tour, to make it more competitive or make it the elite again compared to the Pro Tour?
Yeah, that could happen. The tour director is, I don't know if it's Michael Downs or Sean St. Clair. It's one of those guys. But that case in point, like, I don't even know who the tour director is. Like, everybody knows who Jeff Spring is. Like, it's Jeff Spring. He's at every event. So, yeah, this is not, I don't want to like start a, bash the PDGA party here, but I just don't think that needs to be their priority. Like, I really think that the PDGA should be focusing on amateur disc golf and like growing the sport and like trying to reach areas that, disc golf hasn't reached yet, reaching those niche markets. Like, in my opinion, I just don't think, they're a nonprofit. Like, it's just not, they're not going to win is basically what I'm trying. Like, it's not going to be competitive. Like to try to compete right now with the Pro Tour, like, it might work now, but like in 2 or 3 years, it's just not even going to be close. And the amount of resources they're going to spend on trying to compete, I really think is better placed in other areas of the sport. In my opinion, I think the PDGA should focus on the majors, like 4 tournaments: Worlds, USDGC, US Women's, and European Open, and make those like, and like, those are the 4 pro events they do every year, and just like put all of your energy into that. And like, maybe you hire on some temporary staff for those events, but like, make those as good as you can make those, and just don't worry, because it just feels like they're spread a little bit too thin, and it's pretty evident at some national tours. And like, the best national tour every year is Dynamic Disc Open, and the reason that it's the best is because the GBO staff and Jeremy Rusko and Doug Bierkes and the whole Dynamic Disc team is like the best local club to ever run a tournament in the history of disc golf tournaments. Like, they are so good at it. They do it every year. They've been doing it for 10 years. It's the biggest disc golf event ever, and they're just really on top of it. So the PDJ doesn't really have to do anything at all. They just show up, with their U-Haul and a few assets, put it out like a week before the tournament, and they don't have to worry about it because, DD has it under control. But every other place, you don't have clubs like that in every city, So I just think it's a little pointless. But yeah, we'll see what the PDJ ends up doing. I do think there is a big risk of losing some of the courses. Like everybody thinks like, oh, well, if we just hand it over to the Pro Tour, like they'll just absorb all the events. Well, the Pro Tour has standards. So like a 24-hole layout does not fly for a Pro Tour event. Like they're going to be like, no, you can't do that at day law. Like it needs to be 18 holes. And like Beaver State Fling having 2 shotgun rounds on a Thursday, that does not fly with the Pro Tour. Like they will not hesitate to nix those events off their schedule, even though like they hold like such a, you know, important place in most touring pros' hearts. They don't. It's just if it doesn't fit the standards of the Pro Tour, like they won't hesitate to make other events or force, you know, those events to change their style. So I think there's maybe some concern amongst the PGA, maybe amongst disc golfers, that if the national tour stops, you know, Masters Cup and Beaver State Fling might just return to being A tiers and might slowly kind of lose, you know, eliteness as, you know, time goes on. So yeah, that will be interesting to see that if that happens or not. But that would be like my one argument for keeping a national tour around, is to keep events like that at a higher level, because they hold like an important place in our sport. But other than that, I don't think it's worth it for the PGA to continue to spend all that effort on maintaining a high level professional tour.
Yeah, I think that was a fantastic answer, and so much to unpack from that. I guess I want to start here with, and you kind of already sort of hinted on this, but I just want to kind of explore this part a little bit further. With U.S. Women's, you know, the PDGA running that, I mean, I would call this last tournament a failure, in my opinion. The fact that a major had only 3 rounds in 3 different courses is unacceptable. And I think you're correct. And I'm also going to throw a little bit of my opinion in here as well, is that, you know, you do see some of these national tour events not ran as well as the Disc Golf Pro Tour events. And the PDGA almost seems like you were saying, you don't really, no one really knows who's running the PDGA right now. I can't tell you who's running the PDGA right now, where like Jeff Springs is at every single event. He is there. He's invested in the growth of this. And I agree on the statement of, I think the PDGA should focus on the 4 majors, and they should focus on the AM side and getting more people involved in disc golf instead of the pro side of disc golf. So I guess this is a tough question here, but do you think that right now, on the trajectory we're on, do you think the PDGA is hurting the ability for the pro side of disc golf to continue to grow and expand into, you know, maybe getting corporate sponsors or getting on TV more or anything like that? Or do you think the PDGA doesn't really have any impact on that right now?
Yeah, I don't think the PDGA has any. They don't have any impact, because what the Pro Tour is doing is just far superseding anything. Like it's not holding the Pro Tour back. I mean, if anything, like, you know, PDGA, the national tour is just going to get left behind, and whether or not they want to, like, you know, put up a fight or kind of like cut their losses and, you know, work on events that they can focus on and put their energy into remains to be seen. I 100% agree with your point. I mean, that U.S. Women's was, I mean, that was a disgrace. You have, it's the only major of the year with 3 rounds, and it's the one major that's like only for women. I mean, really? Like, come on, guys. Like we're trying to help grow the sport of like the female sport. I think that's like one of the biggest things we need to do in disc golf right now, is like enhance the FP side of this game. And it just seems a little like it's so blatantly, not, I don't know if this is the right word, but it's just like, really, like the one women's major is the one 3-round tournament, and it's 3 different courses. That was just, you know, a disgrace. And I mean, to be honest, if the Disc Golf Network wasn't there, like who was there to cover it, right? I mean, like Central Coast, I don't even know who else was there to cover that event. So I think the PDGA is lucky that the Disc Golf Network decided to cover U.S. Women's, because otherwise I don't even know what sort of, I mean, Jomez wasn't there. I don't Gatekeeper, maybe. I don't know. I was in Mexico, so I was a little like out of it. I was just kind of watching on UDisc and the Disc Golf Network. But yeah, it was. I heard a lot of things from a lot of people about how it was not well run. And I mean, 3 rounds in a major and 3 different courses, just those 2 things alone, those are some pretty large red flags. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know Joe Chargaloff. I've met him a few times. He's the director of the PDGA. He's like the CEO. But his, like, what you have to understand is that the PDGA, like, 80% of their focus has nothing to do with the national tour. Like, they have 1, maybe 2 staff members dedicated to the nationals tour out of what, 15, 20 people on their staff. So they have a very large treasury, and they have a decent amount of staff. I mean, PJ has a pretty significant amount of money, and they spend a significant amount of their energy working where I think they should be working, which is like on the amateur side of the sport. But yeah, I don't really see any reason for them to be expending all this effort on trying to maintain a national tour and then seeing majors like US Women's happen the way that they happen. It's just like, wow, I mean, like, just let the Pro Tour run DDO if that's what it takes to get you guys to like get out to California a couple weeks early and really make this a good major for the women. Like, it needs to feel like a championship out there. So, and it didn't. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. But yeah, we'll see if they do it. It's kind of hard to tell with them sometimes about like what they're thinking. They can say one thing and then a couple years later it's not going to happen. Because I was hearing things a couple years ago about how, you know, the PDJ is going to hand the national tour over to the Pro Tour by 2022. But then you're like saying something. I was talking to a couple people like a few weeks ago, and I was like, well, you know, we don't know. So it's really like nobody really knows what PDJ is going to do.
Yeah, and real quick, like on like the money side, because that's one thing I've always thought about, and just kind of like, where does that money go? Because everybody who has a PDGA membership, they pay, and it's not cheap for a PDGA membership, just for your average person. And then if you don't have a PDGA membership and you play tournaments, you have to pay a fee for not having a PDGA membership. So they're still getting money from every player playing tournaments either way. And just like, I don't see, I guess, too much from them. Like, they have a nice website. And then, the national tour, and I don't know what all they do there to put money into that to run those. But besides that, like, I don't know if but like, where does that money go?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I don't really know the answer to that. They have kind of a large, from what I've heard, they have like a pretty significant like treasury that they just kind of keep in case whatever. But I mean, I know they'll put, I mean, they run like, Am Worlds and Am Nationals and a lot of like the big tournaments. They'll put a lot more money into that to support those tournaments, especially like bigger A tiers. And then I think if I'm wrong, I think part of a lot of their money goes into like all the added cash. So like they'll help with payouts. So like your little PGA bonus helps with payouts, and then like the PDGA magazine gets paid for, and then obviously their staff. I mean, they have like a big staff, so your fee is helping the salary of whoever else who is on their staff. So Joe Chargaloff, Michael Downs, Sean Sinclair. It's a couple of media guys that are newer because Steve Hill went to UDisc. Steve Hill used to be like the media guy at the PDGA. I know that if your people are really curious, I think there is somewhere on the PDGA website like a breakdown of what they do with their money, because they're a nonprofit. So I'm pretty sure you have to report. You have to report kind of like where you put that. I don't know. My dad runs a nonprofit that's like not even close related to disc golf, but he has to do the same thing. You have to do like an annual report. So I'm pretty sure you can find the more specifics on that website.
I just don't see myself, like if I don't have a PDGA membership right now, if I went and signed up for one tomorrow, I wouldn't see my life change whatsoever. I I get a lot of, I hate to say it, but I feel like something like UDisc, it would make sense if that was a part of the PDGA or if that was their app or if they were putting out a product like that, then I'd be like, okay, like this is a super sweet product that I'm paying for and I see it. Because I do not mind my membership to UDisc because I get a ton of benefits from it, but I just don't see what benefits I would get from being a PDGA member.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, for me, the membership is like essential for touring, obviously, because
Right,
like
right.
I can't play the elite level. Um, I can't. Oh, guys, I'm going on Smashbox tonight. Sorry, this is Dustin who led our trip to Mexico. So,
No, you're all
um,
good, man.
so yeah, I mean, for me, it's essential, right? Because like I have to have be like member certified through whatever, and then you have to take the officials test, right? To be because everybody who plays has to be an official to play on the pro tour. Um, so because you have to call your card mates on whatever, so it's like a 30-question little test, and it's like getting your driver's permit. Um, Same type of test. And then yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, and then rating. Like, I mean, I don't really
Yeah.
care that much about my rating, but one thing I like about my rating that is like, I don't really compare it to like other people, but for me, it's really cool. It just like is a really cool mark of progress over time.
Yeah.
So like I just enjoy that as like because I don't have like that Ricky mentality where like I'm playing match play all the time and like pro tour events. Like for me, it's like myself against my own expectations and against the course. So like I know what I can do and I know my abilities, and like I don't really care what anybody else on my card does. Like I want them to throw good shots because then I'm not bored when I'm not throwing. Like that's more exciting. Somebody throw good shots instead of just watching a bunch of people like, you know, chump it up the fairway. And I like to play fast. So if they're all throwing great shots, then I can play faster. But yeah, having a rating is cool to just like kind of look back over time and see how far you've come. But other than that, I don't really think it's like, I think once you hit like 10, 15, like it's just kind of irrelevant. Like it just doesn't, I don't know, because there's so many. I mean, I even know Chuck Kennedy, like the guy, he's from like Invergrove Heights, the guy who invented the ratings algorithm. Um, And yeah, he sold that to the PDGA, bought it from him for like just shy of 7 figures, I'm pretty sure. Like almost that was like, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that. I don't even know who I heard that from, but whatever. You guys are getting the exclusive here. Yeah,
Nice.
all I know is that he sold that rating thing for a lot of money to the PDGA, and now they own the rating system. And then they also bought so yeah, that's where your membership goes. If you were a member in 2002, that part of your membership went to buying the rating system. And then the guy who created Disc Golf Scene, the PJ also bought Disc Golf Scene and then hired the creator of Disc Golf Scene to continue running it. I wish I knew his name, but so like when you get redirected to Disc Golf Scene to sign up for all your tournaments, that is actually owned by the PDGA, that website.
Yeah.
Both of both of those were independent things that were purchased by the PDGA, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a little weird. It's a little weird, PDGA membership, but you do it because otherwise you can't tour at this point. But hopefully that might be different in a couple years.
Yeah.
I think that also sheds a little bit of light on the topic, for especially for those who have a little bit of hesitation on getting the membership, just because it's like, oh, well, I mean, I guess if it goes towards this, and this, I guess it's not that bad. They just raised their price. And I saw a lot of people upset at the fact that UDisc raised their price, and it was like maybe $10 or something like that. They raised it. Like, come on, guy, this app is like revolutionary. It's incredible for disc golf. Like it's essential. You have to have it if you're really trying to get better at disc golf, or you just play disc golf a lot. So I've got no problem paying that, as well as, with what the Disc Golf Pro Tour has been doing. When available to watch, I definitely want to watch and am willing to pay that small little fee to keep that going, because their product has just continues to get better. But I think we've had a fantastic conversation so far. I think we've learned a whole lot that you definitely don't get from these other podcasts right now. So if you guys at home are enjoying this conversation, if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment on, do you have a PDGA membership? Let us know. Just let us know what you're thinking so far throughout this episode. Leave us a thumbs up if you're enjoying this. But I want to switch gears real quick. We did talk just ever so slightly. You had mentioned your Mexico trip a little bit. Can we let's explore that a little bit further? What were you doing down with Paul Macbeth in Mexico recently?
Yeah, so I was invited by Paul and his foundation to go to La Paz, Mexico, which is kind of right on the tip of the Baja Peninsula, so down by Cabo San Lucas. If anybody's ever been there, it's basically just like go straight down from California. It's like the big long peninsula, and yeah. So the Paul Macbeth Foundation was started, I think, 3 or 4 months ago, and basically, like, Paul's goal is to kind of bring disc golf to underserved and underdeveloped areas around the world, specifically like not in the US, although there are some projects that in the future might be in areas of the US that are still underserved and don't have access to disc golf. And basically it's just like, I think for him, it stems a lot from his childhood. Like, he came from Huntington Beach, which is Surf City, USA, but it's also like a pretty rough town to grow up in. And if you haven't seen the video they made about his contract signing, I would definitely go watch it. I mean, he did not have like the most luxurious upbringing. And, I was talking to him a day or two ago. We were driving down here from San Francisco about like friends he knows that didn't make it out of high school. Like, just they got caught up in the culture there in Huntington Beach, and it can be pretty rough. And for him, he said like disc golf saved him. Like, and it was like something that was consistently there that kept him out of trouble, and eventually led to 10 years, 10 million. And the rest is history. But and I think like that's something that he wants to give to other kids around the world, like that same opportunity that he had. And like for me, it was that pretty much rung true. I spent most of middle school trying to be the most popular kid in middle school, and after 8th grade, I was like, that really didn't work. I spent 3 years trying to be like somebody that I wasn't, and at that point, I had been playing disc golf for like 2 or 3 years, and I basically said, you know what? Like, I don't need to succumb to peer pressure. I don't need to be popular. Like, I don't need to have friends because I have disc golf. And I ended up having a lot of friends by the end of high school, but that was because I like recognized that, like, I could just be myself, and I didn't need to like have pressure on like being popular, fitting in. And so like, for Paul, it saved him in the way that it like kept him out of trouble. For me, like, I don't know if I would have necessarily gone down like a really bad path, but I definitely could have seen myself being like less independent. And so that was like really cool. And yeah, it was, we built a course at this amazing, it's like a Christian retreat camp. I'm going to read the description on UDisc is like the perfect, because I wrote it. And it's called Rancho El Camino. And it's this amazing place outside of La Paz, like kind of out in the desert. Let's see what it says here, because I don't want to misquote them. So here we go. All right. So yeah, it's Rancho El Camino. It's a Mexican nonprofit that serves children, youth, and families through therapeutic, recreation, community development, and mentorship programs. So it's basically like, it's like an after-school day camp. I don't know if you guys have like those YMCA camps in your area, but that's kind of like what it felt like for me. And yeah, and so they have like they have a mixed staff. So they have a bunch of American staffers who live down there at the camp. And then they also have like local Mexican staffers. And the cool thing about a lot of those local staffers is they used to be kids at that camp, and they've like been doing it for so long that they actually like got put into a role
Cool.
at the camp. So yeah, it's this beautiful, like you're in the middle of the desert, and then there's this like this beautiful little oasis with like 50 palm trees, yeah, like a collection of little buildings, and they get anywhere between like 30 and 150 kids, you know, every day after school, and they've got, you know, horseback riding and homework help and outdoor activities. And so I think that disc golf was just like another kind of thing to add to the list of things you could do at their camp. And that was like the big thing for me. Like, I love touring. Touring's fun and it's great. But like, you know, for me, there's like the triangle of things when you're like trying to pick something that you want to do, or at least you want to do for the next few years. And it's like, okay, well, there's what you're good at, is what you love to do. And then the third part of the triangle is like what makes the world a better place. And like, at least for me, that was like how I was raised by my parents, to like always think about all three of those elements. And so touring was fun and I love it and I'm going to keep doing it. But that like third element wasn't like really, I didn't really know like where to find that. And then when Paul texted me when I was in Arkansas, prepping for Jonesboro, and he was like, hey, we've got an extra spot. You want to come down to Mexico with us for a week, help us build a course? You know, I was like, well, first I freaked out because I was like, you know, Paul and Beth just invited me to Mexico. Yeah. I mean, like I've known Paul for 3 years and like we're pretty close friends, but that was still like, wow. I mean, that's like a whole nother level. So, you know, I had, and like when I first met everybody on tour in 2019, I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, that's Eagle McMahon. Like, oh my, you know, just like anybody would. Like I fanboyed for like 3 days at Memorial in 2019. And then I was like, okay, all right, like you're on the in crowd, you work for the tour, like these people are all your friends now, like, you know, and that's how it's been for the last 2 years. Like they're all, you know, we're all friends. Like I don't freak out when I see, you know, whoever. But that moment, I called my mom. I was like, oh my God, Mom, Paul and Beth invited me to Mexico. Like, you have no idea. You're gonna have to send me my passport. So I freaked out, but that element of like giving back, that was really like kind of the key thing for me for that trip.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about the course, like setting it up, just kind of how that, you know, was it designed by Paul? Like, how did that all go?
Yeah. So they had basically the baskets. There were like 9 veterans. That's one of the other great things about the Paul McBeth Foundation is it's not like Discraft like specific necessarily. Yeah. And like I think that's huge. It's like he is focusing on like, we're not introducing like Discraft to the world. We're introducing disc golf to the world. So like, and like he's been saying, like if there are pros who have, you know, somewhere that they think we should bring disc golf to, like the Paul McGrath Foundation like wants to do that, you know, in the future. And then like that specific pro can like come on that trip and like it's really special. So this project, Dynamic Disc, stepped up in a huge way. Doug Bierkus was actually down there with us and his wife. And so they made a bunch of discs. Like they stamped, I don't know, a couple hundred discs in boxes, and then they supplied the 9 baskets. So yeah, we got in on Monday, and then Tuesday we got to the course and basically to like the land and just did like a walkthrough. And basically in that one pass through, Paul was like, all right, I got all the holes, like just boom. And I was like, oh, all right, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's very, very rocky, very desert terrain. So yeah. We just did natural tee pads for the moment because we're expecting these kids to kind of like outgrow this course. I mean, it's a pretty short, like beginner level course, like 150 to 250, like is the maximum. But like, you know, for me, it's like 2-9 down would still be good. Like, I mean, I'm shooting like, I don't know, 6 or 7. Like it's not like gimme. there's some like pretty tough greens, I would say. That's like the hardest part. None of the shots are that difficult, but like if you're off by a little bit, there can be some really obstructed putts. So yeah, we just basically kind of like marked out all the positions the first day and assembled all the baskets. And then by the end of the first day, we had like every tee sign and every basket in like their spot that they needed to be, just like not poured yet. And then the next 2 days were basically, or the next like day and a half to 2 days were spent like digging holes. So usually when you have like, because I actually helped design the preserve with Kale. And with that, you can just like dig down into the dirt and then put the sleeve in with like cement. And like the dirt and the cement kind of like hold it in. But with all that sand, you can't actually like do that because it's just going to move everywhere.
Yeah.
So what you end up doing is taking like a 5-gallon bucket, and you have to dig a hole big enough to put a 5-gallon bucket in, and then you put the sleeve in, and then you fill that bucket up with concrete. So there was 5 of us from the US, and then they had a bunch of like the older campers, like kind of like our age, like 17. I mean, I'm 21 now, but like the, 16, 17, 18-year-old. And there was probably like 6 or 7 of them, and then a couple staffers helping us. So yeah, we were going with pickaxes and just digging these holes. I mean, Paul and I I mean, those kids definitely did the heavy lifting, but we both broke a sweat. And then by Wednesday night, the course was like done, basically, like completely done to go. Like, right, the baskets were in, like the tee pads were set, the tee signs were in concrete, and yeah, we had basically everything done. And then the last like 2 days of the trip were spent doing a lot of videos. So there's going to be a video on Paul's channel. There's going to be a video on Jomez's channel, like a mic'd up practice round with me and Paul playing the course, like playing double disc. That's what it's called, 2 disc, whatever. Just you throw 2 shots and you play them both out. So it's like it ends up being like 18 holes. And then Jomez was also, they had Ryan, one of their guys, and another guy, Raul, were both there filming, like, I think it's going to end up being like a documentary. I don't know when that's going to come out, but that was kind of like that's kind of how it felt, the documentary. And then there's some other stuff. And then we were teaching clinics the last 3 days we taught. So we had like 70 kids the first night, and then 60 or 70 kids the second night. And then we did like a staff exclusive advanced clinic on the last day that we were there on Friday. And kind of like gave them, we did like a clinic for them on less about like how to play and more about like how to teach, because at that point they all kind of like understood the basics.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how the week went. But yeah, we can get into more specifics if you guys have questions about that.
Yeah, I think that was a really, really good answer to Horatio's question. I think we're starting to get a little close on time. So maybe in the future we can have you come back on after maybe a couple more of these have happened, and we can continue to have this conversation.
Sure.
But I think let's go ahead, Horatio, let's get into the ace round and kind of wrap this podcast up here. So Horatio, you want to go ahead and start us off then with the first question for the ace round and explain what it is, I guess, for new listeners?
Yeah, but just real quick before we get into that, did Paul play the course, and what was his score?
The best he shot, nobody shot perfect. I think we each of us, well, we both tied, or we shot something when we first played it. And then the Jomez video, I'm not going to say because you have to watch it because it was exciting. But I think I played doubles with the staff member. We shot 9 down. And then the best that me and him shot, I think both of us shot 7, but I don't think either of us went perfect. But we were like, disc golf was so in the back seat.
Yeah.
We got 1 full serious round in we were focusing on the kids and the clinics, which was like the most rewarding part of the whole trip, was just watching these little kids' eyes light up. And you see where they come from, dude. I mean, we went over to these neighborhoods, and it's like these kids are like living in houses that are made out of like pallets, and the fences are like, they're like box springs from mattresses. Like all the mattresses gone, you just have the springs, and like that's their I mean, like ultimate poverty. And it like, we went over to those neighborhoods, and it was like, it made so much sense why so many kids would go out to Rancho El Camino like every day, because it was like such a haven, and all those kids were hooked. And like for me and Paul, it was less about getting a pro out of Mexico, like having a world champion out of Mexico. It was more about changing the lives of those 150 kids by giving them an outlet for something else to do, instead of like, you go into those neighborhoods, it's like, wow, you can see immediately like where their lives could lead. And by having that option, that's kind of like the mission, I think, of the Paul Macbeth Foundation. It's like, it'd be cool, it'd be amazing to see representation, and I think that will happen down the road, like professional representation from these places. But it's just more about like improving the communities and starting with the kids, which is like the most important.
That's awesome. Yeah. Really excited to see the future of that, and hopefully more pros start, getting involved. But first ace round question we got for you here is, you're taking out a buddy. So this is perfect. So maybe one of those kids, who's gotten hooked. What is one putter, one mid, one driver you would recommend for them to get?
That's a good question. Mid would be a Buzz. If it's like, are we saying like a beginner kid?
Just someone that's, they're going to start playing every day. Someone that's like hooked, taking it seriously.
Yeah. Driver, I would probably say like, I would honestly start them on like a Valkyrie. That's what I started on. I think that's like a really good driver, and it like, you can really ease into it. And putter, I mean, for me, I'm biased because I putt with the links, but I would give them a link. I mean, you can putt with it, you can throw with it. I think it's like a really good all around putter.
Quick side question on that. What plastic do you use for the link?
I use the Glow link, so like the OTB, not the Medusa ones, but like the OTB exclusive drop with like the little wing stamp. I have like 10 of those. That's what I use.
Nice.
They're really nice.
Yeah, definitely something that I got in the little mystery box that Disc Community did for the tilt, and definitely something that I should try to putt more with, because it definitely does feel pretty good in the hand. The second question we have for you here is, what is your favorite course you have played, and one course you would love to play?
Favorite course I have played. I'd say one of my favorite courses I've ever played is Diamond X in Billings, Montana. It's kind of a hidden gem, but it's like the most extreme course I've ever played. It's like one of those courses where like disc golf just kind of gets like swept aside because of how beautiful it is. Definitely, if you're ever in Billings, Montana, or if you're ever making the drive home from Worlds or somewhere, that's the place. Diamond X is super cool. Course I have yet to play, I have to say Milo or Maple Hill, one of those two, but probably Milo.
Cool. Yeah, both of those look beautiful. All right, number 3. One tip you would give to yourself just starting out in disc golf.
Learn a forehand earlier. Throw more forehands. Like my forehand's in a good place now, but I wish I would have started earlier.
Yeah, for sure. Fourth question we got for you. What is your favorite memory playing disc golf?
My favorite memory. Wow, that's a good one. I would say my favorite memory playing disc golf. I aced hole 11 at the Preserve on the Black Bear layout during like $100 a head doubles match, and we were down 2. We ended up winning by 1. That was like probably one of my favorite disc golf memories. And it was like a 400-foot shot into a big headwind. So I was just trying to hit the gap. But my favorite like disc golf memory was caddying for Paul all 4 rounds of the 2019 Glass Blown Open. That final round was like still one of the most like chilling final round experiences I've ever had. And I was caddying for him and he won by a stroke, and that was like ridiculous.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome for sure. All right, last question we got for you here is, what is the biggest mistake you see new players make?
Good question. The biggest mistake I see new players make. Well, the biggest mistake I see really, really, really new players make is when you're throwing backhands. I see way too many people who like stop their motion halfway through and try to just like spin the disc like an ultimate player, like on those little short passes, and like not realizing that like really good backhand form is like the disc is going to spin itself on like one fluid motion. And like that's been on my repeat in my head for the last week because all the clinics I was teaching. But I would say the biggest mistake I see people make is paying too much attention to other people and their ratings. Like just focus on your own game. Like if you're below 950, you should not be worrying about anyone else. Just like, worry about other people when you're like, upper 970s, then you're a pro at that point. Like just if you're under 950, just focus on your own game and studying other people's form instead of like studying their ratings.
Yeah, I really like that one. I do have a bonus question real quick. Sorry about this, everyone, but when you were caddying for Paul, was it you just are giving him a disc, or is there like a conversation between holes, or is it just like Paul's like, I got this, like I don't need any input? Like what was that dynamic like?
I mean, it depended on the hole. Like the island hole, I was very active as a caddy. As in I was like, dude, don't go for this. He went for it the first round and he missed the island, and then he wanted to go for it the last two rounds, and I was like, you're not going for it. And I basically just like handed him the zone, and I was like, nope, you're throwing this. And he parred the last two, he actually bogeyed it the final round, but it didn't matter. That, and then mostly it was just like he would like break down his game plan for me, and like we would just like discuss the shot, and it was more of like a confidence building thing than anything, like for him to like feel that reassurance from me. So that was kind of how that worked. But basically what he told me on the first hole of the first round was just treat this like a 3-hour conversation about anything other than disc golf. And then like every 2 minutes I have to I have to take a 30-second break to go throw this Frisbee. But his ability to like switch game mode on and off, was like insane. Like how Climo would always say that about like how I don't understand how players focus for 3 hours. Like I only focus for 2 minutes because I only focus when I'm throwing. That's like what Climo would always say. Paul Macbeth is like exactly like that. Like he throws his shot, gives himself like 2 paces to react to that shot, and then afterwards it's like right back to whatever like attitude he had before he threw the shot. So that was that was the biggest thing I took away from that, was just how he mentally like controlled himself out there.
Nice. That's awesome, man. Well, Joey, hey, man, we really appreciate your time tonight, coming on, spending an hour with us. Where can people connect with you on social media?
You can follow me on Facebook, Joey Temali. If you want to see me in action, I suppose you can go watch Eagles vlogs, because that's my job basically, is filming those. And then on Instagram at jtamalito. That's my Instagram handle. So we just crossed 1,000 followers. Thanks, everybody. You guys that's where I'm the most active.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on, taking the time. Hope you enjoy your days out there in California just exploring. We're excited to see that coverage, what went down in Mexico, and hope to see more from you in the future.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Chain Clankers podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers, and hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us from so you never miss another episode.